Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Just want to call this RCC meeting to order on August 12th, 2024. First item of business is to appoint the timekeeper. Just wondering, James, would you be willing to be the timekeeper tonight? Keep us on track?
Yes.
Thank you. Public appearances on non-agenda items, seeing none. Move on to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the draft minutes from the July 8th, 2024 RCC meeting?
I move approval.
Bill moves approval. A second?
I'll second.
Kim seconds. Any discussion?
I have a couple things. On 4C, I think that you requested, Chris, that Ben add dollars to account for the adding on a second shred event,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And also, I thought that the recycling that Sean proposed wasn't a one-time deal. You know, the first 1,000 pounds, we get a free recycling bench. I thought it was for every 1,000 pounds. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, I think we all kind of did at that time. We did later find out it was basically once you hit that 1,000 pounds, you get the bench and no more benches after that.
Okay. That was the impression I got.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you guys all thought that? Okay.
I did think that, like that we're going for one bench. And
Well, because it was over a short period of time, and it seemed unreasonable that we could get more than 1,000 anyway, or more than 2,000, I should say.
I didn't feel like they would just keep pumping out, like that's to kind of get you going. I'm assuming that would be kind of the incentive to start you up, and
Sure.
once you hit that first bench, then hopefully you've got the program established.
Sure. That makes sense.
Okay, that's all I had.
All right. We'll go to vote on approval of the minutes from the July 8th, 2024 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
I abstained. I abstained
Yeah.
because I was not at
That's
this meeting.
fair enough. Thank you. Moving into new business, so agenda item 4A. We have a week without driving proclamation. Bill is going to lead this discussion.
Yeah, this is something that came to my attention a couple months ago. I was listening to a podcast, and I thought it would be a great idea for the city of Fitchburg. The Wisconsin DOT has a website. Actually, if you go to page 5 in your agenda packet, you see the proclamation, anything that's underlined is an active link. And so the third whereas takes you to the GIS map for the Wisconsin DOT, where you can see for any location in the state, how many, what percentage of residents there are non-drivers? And it's, for both Fitchburg and Madison, it's 40%. And so the week without driving is supposed to call your attention, the 60% who do drive. Hey, what's life like for people who don't? People who walk places, ride their bike, take transit, or have to, bum a ride from a friend because they can't drive for, physical reasons or financial reasons or whatever. And of course, if you don't drive, you're not emitting any greenhouse gases. So I thought it was appropriate for this body to take a look at the proclamation and, feel free to send me any feedback. And if there's any thought to how we might want to promote this, the RCC, I'm welcome to hear that as well.
So it's really for, the elected officials are kind of taking this on, so there's...
Well, yeah, I mean, the big push is to get elected officials and probably, city staff as well, like traffic engineers, public works, directors and things like, people like that, to experience the infrastructure that we build or approve of.
So this is a nationwide initiative, so everyone that's, doing this, it's all September 30th to October 6th.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the Greater Madison MPO is promoting this, their round trip program as well. The city of Middleton passed a resolution proclaiming this week to be the week without driving, and Lisa Hanairo, alder over in Middleton, was reaching out to other area municipalities. I reached out to one of the council members in Stoughton, as well as people in Monona. So, who knows, but there should be, I think Dane County might be participating as well.
Okay. So I imagine if we had some communications with these people, we could have some consistent social media posts and,
right.
I mean, we could probably create some of our own. I mean, I think there's a story to tell about transportation in Fitchburg with all the bike trails.
Yes,
And
definitely.
whatnot. That is unique to us. But, certainly if we could, get some, if there are any common social media posts that are going out that we can post on the city of Fitchburg, and then maybe develop a few of our own to kind of, be customized for Fitchburg residents. I think that's an area where we could potentially help out, so our community outreach subcommittee could have a role with that.
I like that.
Okay.
I didn't even look at the schedule. What's on the docket for the September Fitchburg Star article? At least one of them said.
I think Ron was going to write something.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we had, I didn't see any, when I looked at the packet, I didn't see anything assigned for September or beyond, but I thought that we had things assigned for September and beyond.
Yeah.
So I guess could always be
October, and I didn't remember who was going to be September, but
yeah,
that would be a good opportunity.
The timing of the paper coming out is around September 10th, so I guess it could give people a few week warning. We generally actually schedule our events to happen around the 15th to the 20th of the month, just to be closer to when the star's coming out. Oftentimes. Okay. But I mean, I'm not suggesting that we're moving this, back or anything, but I do think that, can make it work. It's not, ideal. Yeah. Ideally, it would be the 15th to 21st, so it's right before, so people are kind of seeing it. But in this case, it's more of a notice,
Right, and it's, there's the MPO is going to come up with some kind of template journal, so people could, in the weeks leading up to it, just say, okay, how much do I actually drive? And then during the week, you can journal all your trips and see how successful you are at not driving. So if you have, it might be just fine to say, in the Star article, hey, go to this website and start filling out your journal now, because 2 weeks from now is when things starts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a good idea to also include that as an action item that we look into that approach. And so like with the article, I think, when we get to that segment, we'll talk a little bit more about what our articles are, because I don't remember what Ron's topic was, if it was like time dependent on going out in early September or not, or if that could go out in October.
Yeah, and I was on the docket. It would be, I could reference this, say, hey, if you've been doing the week without driving, don't put your bike away.
Yeah, right. Yep, okay.
I have a question. I have a question and actually a suggestion. Will the new Madison expansion of Madison, or I don't know if they're calling what's coming into Fitchburg the BRT, will that be in effect yet in this?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. If you go to the website, it still just says coming this fall! Exclamation point. I think it would be incredible if that east-west line would coincide with the week without driving, but I don't know that anybody knows right now when that's going to start. And this is also, so October 15th, I believe, is White Cane Awareness Day. So this, this is going to finish up a week and a half before that reminder as well.
My suggestion is maybe, Bill, you want to trade with Ron, and you write the article in September and promote this week without driving. And Ron, I don't remember what Ron's topic was, and I don't know if Andy's in the room. I can't see the room, but maybe Andy.
Yeah, Ron, last I know of, he said his topic was to be determined.
Okay.
So maybe that would work to switch with him.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll follow up with Ron.
Perfect.
And I do think the first stage of BRT is going to be, I saw September, so I do think.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, September will be active.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments or anything else you want to?
No, I just encourage you to read through it, and if you have any feedback, want any changes, this is draft language at this point. If you feel like you can make it better, let me know, and I can make a few edits before it heads over to council.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, Bill. Moving on to agenda item 4B, the Fitchburg Sustainability Plan update. Phil?
Hello. Try to get my video going here, but I can't. Let's see. I can't promise it'll be worth it. Just came down with COVID yesterday, so I've been a bit of an indoor kid for a couple days now.
Sorry to hear that.
So, yeah, the short version of this, and of course we'll go into longer discussion, I'd imagine, but the short version is we have a draft sustainability plan that's been completed. That link was sent out to all of you for review. In September, we've invited Ted from Pale Blue Dot to come and speak to the RCC again for a little bit more detailed discussion. That'll be good then, because Ron will be back as well to take part in that. But Ron and Ben and I at least talked about including this agenda item in August so you could get some initial comments, questions, anything for clarification, etc., that you'd like before the public commenting period is done, which is August 30th. So that's the real quick and dirty version. The little bit more extended version is talking about the timeline of this plan. So public comments are done August 30th. Again, we'll have Ted in here in September to speak to the RCC. We're going to use September and October ideally to, September to have Pale Blue Dot go through and kind of make any final adjustments that are needed. And then September and October, possibly into November, bringing this to Common Council and to citizen boards and commissions, including the RCC, for a final review before Council hopefully approves it.
Very good.
Yeah, Diane?
I was really impressed with how comprehensive this plan is. And I appreciate the back page of each section that tells residents, how they can help. I was just wondering, if it's possible for Pale Blue Dot to put the action items in order of the biggest bang for the buck, or the biggest impact for the time invested or the dollars invested. That I think that might be helpful for everybody going forward.
Possibly. I'll have to ask Ted if there is any particular rhyme or reason for the ordering that he's got in here. It's not alphabetical. But yeah, I'll check and see what the logic is. And if there is a strong reason for that, then maybe keep it there, and otherwise possibly think about moving it around. I know that one thing that came up was request to get kind of a breakdown by action item of the expected cost and emission savings, and that was just beyond kind of the scope of what Pale Blue Dot was going to be able to do. That's complicated to do at the best of times, but especially given the resources available here, trying to break things down individually by that is difficult. And so I imagine with the what you can do, that's not something that they necessarily have the impacts quantified, but I can check.
Yeah, the other thing that I noticed, at least under solid waste, it seems that a lot of their action items we've already done. Like we did a waste sort. I don't know that they use the information from the waste sort, but I think that would be more helpful than like a Dane County waste sort or a statewide waste sort. And I don't know where they got their recycling information, but I know we don't have anything specific to Fitchburg from Pelletier, but it would be better than, again, using Dane County or even statewide stats.
The data came from a variety of sources, so Ben and I got as much, especially Ben, he's definitely more in the know on this, got as much specific Fitchburg information as we could. And then any place where that wasn't available or feasible, we got it from Dane County, and we might have scaled it down to the size of Fitchburg relative to the county. But for the most part, all the waste and recycling information should be specific to Fitchburg. There are definitely some items where, yes, we have done this, but it was long enough ago that it's worth revisiting. I'm still going through. It's a lot to dig through, so staff has kind of finished their high level review, but I'm kind of digging through it with a fine-tooth comb as well. And there are some things that, if it seems like we've done it but it could be done better or more regularly, we'll keep it. But if it's something that just doesn't belong anymore, because it's a one-off thing that we've already done, I'll make sure we remove that.
Okay. The only, and this might be more specific than you want today, but I would like them to include as an action item to encourage businesses, well, the community, residents, businesses, to reduce their ice melt. They use the word salt, and they talk about the residents reducing salt, but actually we should just say salt because it's water softener and road salt and ice melt, but I'd like them to include that as an action item.
Yeah, I'll make sure. I thought we had something in there for the water and wastewater section about reducing salt use. That certainly should be. If it's not, then yeah, that should be in there.
Oh, and by the way, the links to view if you look at, I think it's in there. Oh, maybe it's not in the appendix. Publitas, those links aren't working.
Yes, yeah, there are a few links that aren't working properly that I've already flagged for Ted's team to fix. The Publitas ones, I think those are all of the baseline documents. When Ted put this draft together, I hadn't yet uploaded all the baseline documents for storage on Fitchburg's website, so I've done that now. I'm going to give him links so that he can just link to all of those. I think those are going to be more long-term secure archival locations.
Okay. If other people don't, I don't want to hog all the time, but when it's talking about local food, somewhere in here, not under local food, but somewhere they talk about organics, and I think organic gardening. I think that's on the back cover of one of these, but not local food. I would like to see that as an action item under local food to encourage organic produce and the use of compost.
You speaking on a agricultural level or more like home gardening level?
Both.
Both.
And then GE24, they talk about reducing concrete, but wouldn't we also want to reduce asphalt?
GE24, reduce concrete on parklands. I think that probably covers both. I can ask him to reduce hardscaping, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know what the motivation is behind reduction of concrete. It's inherently a very carbon intensive process to produce the cement that goes into concrete. But from a stormwater perspective and ground, contamination with petroleum products and stuff, asphalt is just as important. But asphalt is like infinitely recyclable, whereas concrete is not. And so the fact that once you cast the concrete, that's the one and only time you're going to use it. Plus the carbon intensity of it is, I was thinking, was probably the main reason for that.
I think this one, because it's under strategy GE2, so that's about turf replacement and more pollinator supportiveness. I'm not actually sure that that's the appropriate strategy for this to be on, but I think this is more about just reducing hardscaping. So there's a variety of, Bill, you mentioned several of them. Another one, though, is that asphalt is a bigger contributor to heat island effects.
Yeah.
And that's something that is called out in some of the baseline documents. So yeah, I'll ask them to take a look at that and see if that belongs in a different strategy, and maybe it's both concrete and asphalt that we want to reduce in parklands.
So Phil, I've heard at least one other alder say that he's convinced there's a room here at City Hall. Nobody knows where it is, but that's the place where all of our finished plans go to become forgotten. And I don't remember, there's like 190 some action items here, and I guess I'm wondering, will somebody condense this down into some sort of a cheat sheet that's easy enough for people to refer to get the main ideas, and then utilize the full document as a reference when necessary? But it's kind of like our comprehensive plan. It's very long. It's filled with objectives, goals, and policies, and every new development says, oh, it's consistent with this part of the comprehensive plan, but they don't tell you, whether it's consistent with other parts. It may be in conflict with other parts of the comprehensive plan. So I'm envisioning the same sort of a thing with our sustainability plan. And so how do we get kind of like a high-level executive summary that people can keep top of mind?
A good question that has been asked a lot internally by several staff members as well. There's concern about the number of actions on here and the ability of a pretty stretched thin staff to actually keep track of all this. The short answer is that I need to sit down with staff leaders and talk about the implementation of this. I'm imagining this will be a discussion when this comes in front of council. It has been a discussion with Pale Blue Dot already and with some staff leaders. What I'm already doing on my end is I'm putting together an implementation spreadsheet. And so for each one of these actions, I'm putting in my initial assessment of basically on a 1 to 3 scale, what do I think the timeline is for accomplishing these things, and what do I think the rough commitment would be from the city in terms of budget and or staff time, which to some degree comes down to money as well. So that is kind of a handy reference tool that we'll have, and I'll run that by a couple others for confirmation. But that'll be kind of a handy reference tool that when we're looking for the easy wins, we look at that spreadsheet and say, all right, what haven't we done? That's maybe a 1 out of 3 on both time frame and budget.
So
a
that
lot.
spread,
Sorry,
will that spreadsheet include all the action items then?
that spreadsheet will cover all the action items.
Good.
Yep. And so I'm going through each of the items, and I'm basically saying here are all the departments that I think are going to be involved in this, whether it's from an operational standpoint or just a staff time or being consulted, and then what partners outside of city staff do we think need to be involved, and then yeah, the budget and the time frame. That doesn't necessarily answer the question of who's making sure this all gets done. One of the discussions with implementation is going to have to be just about what resources do we have available to make this happen right now? What additional resources would we need to really give ourselves the best chance of accomplishing it? And are we able to make that happen? And that is way above my head. That's I'll do my best to help answer that question of what resources are needed. And then it's kind of it's a higher level conversation about if we need additional resources, can we make that happen or not? And that kind of comes down to where this gets prioritized among, as you mentioned, a number of other plans that exist. We've got the citywide referendum that's going to go in front of voters this fall, and there are already a number of staff positions that are called for in that referendum. Additional support for something like this isn't one of those, so that's not necessarily a next year thing to address. I would imagine to some degree it will require a little bit more creative use of listservs that I've got and asking for volunteer help with things. Without getting into too much detail like that, it's a really good question that we don't have a precise answer for yet.
Very good. Anybody else have any other comments or questions for Phil?
I have one more thing, Phil, under transportation.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like an action item that talks about idling reduction. Please.
I can look into that.
The city already has a policy on it. It's unfortunately not always being followed, but
right.
I guess I'm curious why they didn't include that. That might
so that may be one, and I'd have to go back and look at all of our initial. So we, as I mentioned, or maybe Ted did back in the spring at the last presentation to RCC. This started with a pick list of several hundred action items that other cities had done for each of these 8 areas. So my guess is that in the transportation, there were anti-idling policies that were listed in there. I'm not sure if the team that was in charge of transportation didn't select any of those, or if the assessment was, well, the city's already doing that, so if we're trying to keep this from blowing up into 300 action items, maybe let's leave that one out because it's something we've already taken some action on. I would just have to look into why exactly that wasn't included. I think it's because the city has already pursued some action there.
Plus, and I think this is part of the process, right? I mean, the review process that we're going through with, we have some history with what we've done here, and now you can take that feedback back to Caleb with Dodd, and put it in, or say like we don't think it should go, like not saying that this should go in, but like they can come back and say, no, we intentionally left that out, and they can kind of explain why. So that kind of set up some of our conversations or discussion in September. So, I mean, I think this is just kind of part of the process that we're going through with it. And I guess, just for people to know, so the public comment period ends on August 30th. So where can people go and review a copy of it, or are there any sessions remaining for the public to, that could go to?
We won't have any more public sessions. There was one on August 1st, and that is, there's a video link to that on our sustainability plan landing page. The link that you were sent should have some online boxes within each one or underneath each one of the sections for you to provide feedback. If you're not able to find that, let me know, and I'll make sure that everything's looking as it should with that link.
Okay.
or if you need me to resend the link out again, I can do that to the group as well.
Everybody received the link?
I think so.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Phil on that?
Phil, is there a way to download the entire thing as a single document?
At this point, I'm not sure if there is. The one single document that, so it was intentionally uploaded for public review in sections like this just to make it a little bit more approachable. The one single document that I've got access to was submitted to staff for comments, and so it's filled with those comments. I don't really want to share that out just because it's pretty busy with all of that, but I think it'll be once the final plan is ready that we'll have a single PDF. I don't think there is one for the public yet that's just one file. If I find otherwise, I'll let you know.
All right.
So commissioners should be reviewed and finding sharing any comments that they have by August 30th. And then our plan is to be having Ted Richmond in from Pale Blue Dot at our September RCC meeting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what will be kind of the approach at that meeting? How's that gonna work, Phil?
So at that meeting, he will have been able to make some changes based at least on the staff, kind of the internal comments. And it'll be kind of sharing the whole the whole as final as it can be at that point plan to the RCC and have a little bit more discussion about the final process for getting it approved and then where do we go from there.
All right, and just for planning purposes, do you think that's like a 30-minute, 45-minute conversation, just trying to get appropriate agenda time for the next meeting?
I'll have to ask him about that. Okay. The good news is that September is the sustainability focused RCC meeting, so we probably can allot a little bit more time to that one. But yeah, I'll have to chat with him about how much time he anticipates, and then with Ron and maybe you about what else should be on that agenda.
And maybe some homework for us so that we can keep, the better prepared we are, the shorter that meeting can be.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, I'll ask Ted if he's got any homework for you.
All right, perfect. All right, anybody have anything else? Otherwise, thank you, Phil. Very good.
Thanks.
Moving on to agenda item 5A. Old business, so discussing the recommendation for solid waste collection services. Ben.
All right, just wanted to bring this up one last time, and first I'll just kind of go over what the schedule will be for approval of the resolution for the acceptance of the contract. So that'll be, that resolution will come to RCC the next meeting. So that is the 9th, September 9th. Okay. And then it will actually go to council for approval on the 10th. Of course, there will also be the rates for 2025 fees for folks that need to be set. That's the next agenda item. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but they're pretty related. So that's going to be on a similar time frame, so that'll go to the RCC at the September meeting as well, but it won't actually be approved by council until the 8th, October 8th.
And for the rates.
And that is for the rates, okay. Yep, which we'll talk about here. And of course, we've got a new contract here, which means we'll have a recommended level of service that we'll finalize now that will, be in the staff recommendation to council. If they go with exactly what is recommended, then we'll have the rate calculated for that. I did calculate some other rates, what the rates would be, say if council didn't want to remove the unlimited recycling and they wanted to keep that same. So just so everyone here can kind of see, all right, if they want this level of service, here's what the proposed rate would be. So we can, talk about that here and not have any surprises at the September meeting.
Well, September will be just for the services, right? So, and then the October meeting would be the rates discussion.
I'll have rates and services both in September.
For us.
For this group.
Rates go to council on the 8th.
Right.
Right.
But sometimes, I feel like sometimes that's increased and then, we haven't been there to kind of explain, why we might have made a recommendation. So, it may be something that we talk about at the next meeting, like if we think that it, depending on where everything kind of shakes out here, it may make sense for us to be, invited or consider going to that 10 to 8 meeting to be able to explain some of our reasoning or support of certain, recommendations that we put forward.
Sure, yeah, and I'll of course be at that council meeting as well. So wouldn't hurt to have some other some other folks there. But we'll just jump right into the proposal document. At the last meeting, we kind of left off talking about getting rid of the unlimited recycling and then adding yard waste, an additional fall yard waste. So we were going from 4 total to 5 total. And I think we were still kind of deciding, do we want to keep 12 brush pickups or 14 brush collections? I think that's really kind of the last thing. We didn't get set in stone at the last meeting, number of brush pickups. I did kind of look at a few years, if there was any kind of trend as far as when people were getting their brush picked up. I really did not see any noticeable trends. Typically, when there is a brush collection, somewhere between 5% and 20% of all possible properties that could participate. So, some of the things I would have expected to see, like, I would have thought maybe that first pickup of the year is always going to have, the highest or a very high percentage of participation. But I did not find that to be true consistently. In general, yes, I will say there was a little bit more that first week in April, and then the next kind of April was one of the lower ones, but then after that, like as far as May, June, through November, I really didn't see any kind of trend, people taking advantage of it more than not. And I guess the other thing that's important is, just remember that each collection is $2.25. So, if you go drop it down from 14 to 12, you could knock about $4.50 off the rate, the annual rate. So that's kind of the the calculus there. But I don't know that I feel strongly about reducing it, even though I do think 14 is a lot. But it seems like it's been 14 for quite a while now. And I think people appreciate having, a bunch of opportunities throughout the year to place brush, and it also kind of works in favor, when there are storms. We don't have to go out and get, Pelteri or someone else to, make a special, trip essentially, because we know, okay, well, at most in 3 weeks, they're going to be coming. So that's kind of my thought process, but wanted to hear from the rest of the group if maybe people have some different perspectives or thoughts, based on, I don't know, talking to your neighbors or just your own kind of personal observations.
I'm a little surprised that we don't see higher participation in the early spring and the late fall when the trees are dormant and people are pruning them. I mean, it seems like that would be one of the larger sources of this,
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, I don't know how long it's been 14, and I don't know if people really even notice the difference between 12 and 14, but when it was 12, do you know if there were complaints about not enough pickups?
I don't know if it ever was 12.
I think that it was.
I think it used to be 16, and we were able to cut it down to
really?
14. I also know in I think the final year or second year that Claudia was here, we adjusted the schedule so that they were more evenly spaced. We used to do like every other week in the spring, and then only one in June and one in July, and she tweaked that, and Ben has continued with that same pattern. So it's really, I think, difficult to compare, like 2020 with 2024 if that wasn't done in the same schedule. I noticed that sometimes the second one in April or the first one in May has little participation, but maybe we haven't been under the schedule enough to know. And this year, if you remember, in April, we were still having snow. So that's going to skew things a little bit. And that could skew the fall participation too, because I think before Ben was here, we had an early snow in November. So I guess it would be nice to eliminate at least one brush collection because of the greenhouse gas issue, but I can't make a strong case for that either.
Yeah, I think there's another consideration with, like if we do go eventually to some staffed hours out here, like I think there's, some people are using the curbside service. Some people are also taking their yard waste out to the compost site, and so if that's reduced and we are also reducing those hours and we're reducing these, we're kind of pinching off the opportunities for people to do things, so that makes it hard to reduce it further as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And
at least I'd say anecdotally, at least the compost site is great for me for a bag or two of yard waste, but since I drive a Prius, I'm never taking brush down there myself. I'm waiting for the curbside drop off.
Right. But I just I know sometimes I go there on Sundays and like the place is like hopping. There's so many people going in and using it on like especially like Sunday nights that I know we've already talked about like if we were to go to some more staffed hours, like the communication protocol that we would follow for that would be kind of a long time coming before we would make the full shift, or at least a few months of warnings and communications to the public on it. But people have gotten pretty used to that over the years, I think, in Fitchburg. And I think I'm kind of in your boat, Phil. Like if I use it, I'm generally trying to I'm taking like 2 containers out, and and maybe I'm looking to see if I have some extra cardboard that it could be taken out, and trying to combine that in a trip. But some people are taking like full pickup loads of yard waste out there, so it kind of varies depending on where you live and what's going on at your property.
So I guess it just.
Ben, are you getting complaints from any residents about the brush pickup?
Not many. Very few, I would say. most of the complaints that I'm aware of have been, frankly, just folks that maybe were not aware of what the requirements were as far as stacking the brush. I have noticed it seems to be an issue of people mixing their brush and yard waste. That's happened a few times, but I mean, by and large, no, not really many complaints on the brush pickup.
I think there might be an education opportunity here, because I know that some people have not had their brush picked up because they didn't have the cut ends facing the curb.
Right, yep.
And Pelletieri left them a note and so I don't know if Pelletieri comes back after that, but I also have seen people with yard waste out with brush, and perhaps they can't distinguish between what's brush and what's yard waste.
Yeah, that could very well be.
How much brush are people dropping off at the yard waste?
Well, they're not supposed to be dropping off any brush.
I understand that, but I guess if people are, then there's essentially some latent demand for not.
Yeah, if you go down there on a random day, you'll see some brush. I mean, I don't want to say it's like 10% brush. I don't know.
Okay, but
a super exact figure. But
keep that in mind when we're talking about how many brush pickups.
Right. There's some brush there always, pretty much. But it sounds like no one's thinks it has to be 14 or it has to be 12.
No.
Okay. So
if you're not getting a lot of complaints and not a lot of abuse at the drop-off site, then I think what we've got now is probably
that's kind of my
adequate
thought, is we can keep it the same. People seem to be happy for the most part with it. So
I mean, I think the cost savings we've found is to try to get rid of the unlimited recycling, right? So that's the thing that we're going to go, more all in on, and I think we have the numbers to kind of back up why we're making that recommendation. So, I mean, I think that's, through this process, that's, at least one of the items that we've found to try to cut down our costs as a community. I think there's, I'm always curious about the cardboard, because I also know how many people use cardboard over the weekend, so there's no pickups Saturday and Sunday, and then we get to Monday, and obviously they're probably fullest on Monday, but then to have everyday pick, I don't know how many people are going, it just seems like, everyday pickups for all of those containers of cardboard. It seems like there's no way that they could be all filled up by Tuesday again. So I still would like to maybe get that right size down. I think Monday and Friday are super important. Do we need one on Wednesday? So, I mean, we want to get it as empty as possible before we get to the weekend. We want to pick up on Mondays, but, do we need to do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Can we get that down to just Monday and Friday? Or can we get, especially if we had it staffed, I'm sure we probably could.
Right.
So just, I think, kind of keeping an eye on that and seeing if there's something we can do to try to save some of that cost.
Right.
Do any of the community gardens folks come and raid those cardboard dumpsters for laying weed barrier down? Or is that something we should encourage people to do?
I don't think we can encourage people to take things out of there, just, in case someone gets hurt, or just from the liability standpoint. Maybe people do. I don't think anyone would report them. But I don't know that we can advertise that necessarily. I know definitely with scrap metal dumpster, we wouldn't want to do that. Someone gets cut on something or jumps in there, it could be dangerous. I mean, I get it. The cardboard, it would be great if people knew that, because people need cardboard for stuff, like you say, the lasagna method of gardening or moving or whatever, making a fort for the kids. A million different things, but I just don't know that. Maybe I'll have to talk with our attorney about that and see if there'd be an issue.
I don't know if we get to, like the point of encouraging that, like.
Yeah,
I mean, if people, people can be thrifty and go grab it if they really feel like that's what they need to do, but otherwise I'd say like, most people kind of come into contact with cardboard one way or another, so just save it if you have something at your home and use it. But I mean, there's also people out there that don't, order a lot of things online or don't have the box size, or they're trying to take on a project. So, I think sometimes from what I've seen, sometimes on Sundays, there's plenty that's sitting outside the dumpster as well. So,
right,
not sitting inside. That's needing to go inside a dumpster, but I don't know that we get to the point of encouraging it.
All right, well, geez, I had 30 minutes for this item here. Might have been a little excessive. Does anyone else have any questions, thoughts, concerns? If not, I'll just move forward with putting together the recommendation letter for, removing the unlimited, adding the yard waste, and then keeping the brush the same. And I can route that out to everyone, prior to the next meeting. But if there's no other questions or.
I have a question. I think it was several months ago we were talking about renting vac trailers or getting a vac truck
for the leaf,
doing our own yard waste.
Yeah.
Is that just cost prohibitive or what's?
So we kind of looked at it and saw, because there are other communities that do that. Middleton being a great example, they were able to provide a lot of great information. It really just seemed like Pelletary could do it for less, based on the analysis. I mean, you'd have to get some vacuum trucks, probably 2 vacuum trucks.
They're not cheap.
They're not cheap.
And so there's no way to get any sort of an attachment to put onto your street sweeper.
There is. You could, or not a street sweeper
or
attachment.
Some existing.
They have some smaller like trailer styles that you just pull behind in a truck, basically.
Behind one of your new F-150
People that have used those, I haven't heard a lot of positive things. Kind of expensive to maintain. You end up having to make a ton of trips because it gets full really quick. And I guess the other kind of issue with any of these vacuums would be they can only do leaves, so we would still have to figure out a way to get the other yard waste, really small twigs and plant matter of whatever variety.
Which inevitably are just mixed right in with the leaves.
Which I guess causes problems.
So, I mean, have we talked to anybody at neighboring municipalities who do this themselves and what their experience is and how they feel about it?
And I think you must not have been on the commission yet, but I did put a little memo that had some kind of information. We got a lot of information from Middleton, but then we also reached out to basically a public works group. And there are a lot of communities that do it themselves, and we did get a lot of feedback. People.
Evidently, it wasn't a glowing review.
It wasn't super encouraging, and I think it's something that is still important to keep in mind, because there may be a time when it does make sense to go that direction. Maybe Pelletary's costs get substantially higher, and it would make sense to get some more equipment. But I think with the current rates that Pelletary is offering, it didn't seem to make a lot of economic sense at the time. but something that I think still needs to be considered. You know, just.
Ben, could you share that research with Bill?
Yes, yep, and I'll send you that and some of the correspondence that we had with other munis.
Seems like a worthwhile exercise to continue to do, like
I think so.
Often, like every 5 years, like maybe around the time that we're doing this bid, you know, just to continue to just kind of check in and see what, you know, the market's like. You know, is there any new equipment that's come into play that makes it advantageous for us to take it on as a community, or, you know, as we come into our next bidding period. So, like, I think the timing that we did that study, you know, was good, and sharing it out. You know, we knew this was coming, so I think, you know, every 5 years it seems to make sense.
Something to revisit. Yep.
Revisit.
Yep.
Is there?
So did we decide on one additional brush pickup? I mean, a yard waste pickup?
Yep.
For the fall.
Okay, thanks.
There's no such thing as a service where somebody could drive around with a leaf shredder for people who wanted to compost their leaves and would prefer to have them shredded so that by the time spring rolls around, they don't have a bunch of intact leaves. Or conversely, a shredding service at the recycling dump, you know.
I don't know, I think most people would mulch it, like with their lawnmower. Because even if you don't want to, you know, mulch all the leaves in place, you could still throw the bag on it on a lawnmower, you know, and kind of dump all the shredded leaves. And that's what I did. It seemed to work really well.
Okay.
So but yeah, I'm not sure if there is a service like that or not. I'm not aware of one, but could be.
I mean, there might be people who don't feel like shredding it themselves, and
right,
you know, so they leave everything on the curb. But if somebody were to come up and shred it and leave a pile of shredded leaves there, they might take advantage of it where they otherwise wouldn't.
Could be a good idea. Yeah. Jetzer's Mobile Shredding Services.
I'll make it happen.
I can see that a lot of you know,
I've
folks.
been down the street with my scissors.
Yeah, because it's, you know,
Make great money that way.
got older folks that, you know, maybe can't physically, you know, do all the things that they would maybe want to. And so, yeah, definitely could see people, you know, appreciating that service.
Anything else on services anybody has? Otherwise we can move into the rates.
All right, great. And I'll just share my screen quick.
All right, thanks for going over that, Ben. And we'll move into agenda item 5B, which is staying in the same arena, but discussing the 2025 solid waste collection rates. So again, we're going to be, you know, kind of recommending a rate formally at the next meeting. That's the plan, right?
Correct.
Okay, this is just kind of our initial get our feet wet discussion.
Yep, exactly. All right, so this is I think page 119 in everyone's packet. Right here, here's just the.
Can you make it just a hair bigger?
Yeah. Maybe a little bit bigger than that, not 100%. That's better.
Is there a way to put that into full screen mode so that you don't have to?
I know, this is full screen.
Can you guys see the
get.
numbers all right at, you know, those that are virtual tonight? That's the answer. Not quite.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Yeah, yes, excellent.
I've got the packet pulled up on my other screen, so I'm good.
You're good. All right.
All right, so you'll see on this page 119, there's basically these two identical looking tables. One is for each, you know, potential alternate that I think that the council could go for. So this is the one that we're, you know, our recommended level of service. So this is the 5-yard waste pickups with no unlimited recycling. So I've just got this called out as Alt 1 throughout these documents here.
Yeah.
So, you know, what you're looking at here is, about 1.3 million for pelletary, and then about 96,000 for the other services, which include like the yard waste grinding that we do, paying for illegally dumped items, oil disposal, sharps, things of that nature.
Tell me about sharps.
Yeah, so the city has a contract with a vendor that basically does the medical waste.
But we no longer have the drop-off at the PD, right?
Correct. This is for syringes, that kind of a thing, like insulin or whatever. So there's, I think the bathrooms here, we have a drop off for that, that's what the sharps is. Yeah, it's not related
So for the
to
PD,
med shop.
that was just like old medication, not sharps as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ben, does this cover citywide sharps disposal?
This
Not
does.
just within the, yes. So like picking up at Walgreens or Fitchburg Family Pharmacy, that sort of thing is covered?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So, compared to last year, this is about 2% more, just in the pelletary costs. And that's, mostly just due to the refuse unit cost when it was, quite a bit more. And then of course we added the other yard waste collection. So you get to a total of, about $1,417,000. And I did just, there is of course a possibility that council will, forego our recommendation and want to keep the unlimited recycling. So if that is the case, your total now is going to be, $1,456,000. So it's actually not that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things.
It's $13 a year per household.
Yeah, $40,000 total. So not a huge number, but those are the estimated costs for the different alternatives.
And when this goes to council, just make sure you put some info in there about, who's using that, or how much of that unlimited recycling is actually being done.
And that'll be kind of a key piece in the recommendation document to obviously justify that decision, and not that we're just, deciding that on a whim.
And then the other component to that is just Pelletary actually brought it to us, as a safety issue for their drivers. So I think mentioning those two things in tandem are kind of the reason why we've made the recommendation, that we want to not have that be part of our services anymore.
Could we also argue that $40,000 in savings can go towards staffing the dump site?
Sure, or yeah, I mean, it's definitely enough to do, a few different things, or, composting initiative, for
And
sure.
did we have to pay, when the med drop was at the police department, did we have to pay for that disposal?
Yes, and I did remove that from this year's operating budget, I believe.
You did not?
I did remove it.
Okay. I'm missing, at the bottom, you used to show, or in the past, you've shown what the balance would be after, revenue versus expenses, and there's a target to have some sort of a I don't know, 70%, 80% sort of a cushion. Do you have that?
Yeah, so that's on these kind of larger Excel sheets. So for Alt 1, it's got, the different, the estimated expenditures and revenues in
I see it.
2024, and then down at
thanks.
the bottom, it's got
Yeah.
the fund balance information. The spreadsheet is probably not as important as this sheet here, where it's actually, going over, what's the revenue if we choose these different charges. So right now, this year, it was $232. If we were to keep it the same, we would be looking at applying a fund balance of, about $20,000. So the fund balance would be, down to 22.1%. Right now, the fund balance is healthy. I think that the target is between like 15 and 25 max percent. So we've been kind of slowly working our way down. There was a pretty huge fund balance in previous years. So I think right now, about 23%, 22% is kind of what our goal would be. I think in previous conversations I've had with our finance director, I think the preference would be that you're on the higher end of that 15 to 25% range than, on the lower end. So just kind of based on that, I think there's a couple different recommendations that could be made, but I selected this 235 just because it was really kind of the closest to zero, matching up expenditures and revenues without really having to dip into the fund balance. So at 235, it would be $997 we'd be looking at having to apply to the fund balance at the end of the year, and that would still be 23.2% of the annual budget. So that's kind of right into that range where we want to be. Could definitely see an argument for 234, maybe even 233. Of course, you're still going to be in that range, but then the question is, if you go 233, that just means you're going to have to do it more next year. So I think 235 will put us on pace to kind of have a fairly even expenditure fee increase each year going forward through the term of this contract.
Ben, I have two questions.
Yeah.
Last year, when we went through this exercise and we estimated what the fund balance would be at the end of the year, and the year before, we always go through this, how close do we come when we estimate what the fund balance is going to be to actually what it ends up being? Have we been overshooting or undershooting?
We've been pretty close. So we don't know exactly what it's going to be for 2024 yet.
Right.
But for 2023, we ended up applying $12,000 out of the fund balance, and I can see what we thought it was going to be here quick.
And while he's looking at that, if you look at page 121, you can see the net surplus deficit line. So 2019, it looks like surplus of 59,000. 2020 was surplus of almost 25,000, then 28,000, and then deficit of 47,000, and then a deficit of 12,000.
Yeah, so if you can see here, for that 2023, where we ended up applying the fund balance of $12,000, we were initially anticipating applying like $37,000. So we ended up having less expenditures just due to staffing, basically. So there weren't as many wages paid as anticipated. For like the environmental tech position wasn't filled for the entire year. So I think it's pretty accurate because we know basically how many houses there are, and we know exactly what Pelletary charges. It's kind of those little things, like if someone isn't, it would be hard, I think, to have to apply more than apply less. Like, unless we had to, amend Pelletary's contract because we needed an emergency brush pickup after a storm,
That happened a couple times.
Yeah, but there's not too many reasons why we would need to go over any of these budgeted amounts, in my opinion.
I think the.
Good, thanks. My
Maybe in the future, going forward, if we could put this line in here, if you could put the projected number from when we decided this to what the actual was.
Yeah, we could do that, just see how it's kind of compared.
I mean, there may be other years, the last time we went through this 5 years ago, I think that might have been around the time that China was taking less in terms of recyclables. And so, it was kind of a time where recycling markets needed to kind of step up here. And I think that, the cost was like a huge jump. It went from like 160 up to 200 or something like that, so there was a huge jump, and we were trying to and that's when we were looking at the fund balance and this is it's too big of an increase, what can we do to kind of, but I think with this go around, the costs have really pretty much stayed pretty steady. And so just going up $3, compared to the last time we had to do this is, really nice, actually. And, and I think.
Yeah, 2% when inflation lately has been crazy.
Right, yeah. So I feel pretty good about the 235
It's
number.
1.29%
right now. I also know that we may need to tap into that fund balance potentially for some organics management development, if we're gonna have, some type of role, or maybe some piloting that's happening over the next few years, just where, Dane County is going. So, I'm in favor of making sure that we're staying healthy, but, in past years when we're making the huge rate increases, that's where I feel just to the residents,
Cushion the blow.
Yeah.
Let's cushion that blow a little bit.
Great. So, okay.
I had one other.
Yeah.
I had one other question. Ben, we talked about the city absorbing if we go to limited curbside recycling pickup, the city absorbing a cart swap if residents want to get a bigger cart. Did you estimate or include any of that in your figures? Will you include that in your write-up going to the council?
I did not, but I can do that.
I think that even though the unlimited recycling curbside is used by few residents, I think that you're going to hear from them. So I don't know. I think that that's a relatively small fee that Fitchburg could absorb.
Yeah, the cart swap fee is not a ton. And of course, if you go up from it's not like refuse where you have to pay a greater fee annually if you go with a larger cart. There is no additional recurring fee with the larger recycling bin, so that.
Remind me, just ballpark, how many households do we think this applies to? People who are taking advantage of the unlimited?
Goes like 100.
Okay.
So we have 100 people that have, of those, like likely number, maybe 50, 75 are coming forward and upgrading their cart because they have space to do so, and we're making that offering. So, that's
not so bad.
That's not so bad.
Yeah. So 235 seems like folks are pretty comfortable if that was the recommendation for this preferred service.
Shooting for neutral impact on the fund balance,
Yeah.
I think is the right thing to do.
Okay.
I think you did a nice job, Ben. Usually I try to trim it down a little bit, and like I could also see a reason for 234, but I think you did a nice job, and I'm comfortable with a $3 increase.
Great. And then we'll take a look at this other alternate, just in case it does, council does decide this. So in this instance, I think 241 would be appropriate, and again, for the same reason of just trying to get, close to a zero impact on the fund balance. But I think this kind of shows that the unlimited recycling is significant cost, $6 more than what's being proposed in alternate one. I don't know if there's any objections to this.
How was it? Okay, so it looked like a difference of 50 cents times 26 pickups, which would have been $13. What am I missing? Is that because of this is like multifamily? This is like citywide, and
it's because there's Pelletari's cost is only like a fraction of the different expenditures. So if we look at like there's wages and stuff.
Sure.
So it gets less important when you look at the whole big picture.
Any other questions or comments on rates?
Good job.
Yeah, really nice job. I mean, I think that's the fastest we've come to consensus on it. It seems pretty straightforward, so it should be a pretty quick approval in September. But I think just so people know, Diane offered to keep our unofficial minutes. But I think there are just a couple of action items that we want to take care of ahead of getting this in front of council, so we're able to kind of take some of those things that we've talked about here, make sure that those are kind of presented to council with why we are recommending the getting rid of the unlimited recycling, and just kind of a little bit of the data to back that up. I think that will be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you feel like we need it, or if you're just interested and want to go to this council meeting, I encourage commissioners to go for this part of the meeting to support Ben with our decision. In the past we have not provided that support, and then I think some things happened at council that we weren't really expecting. We made a recommendation, but I think council stuck with us. I think we made a recommendation, maybe trying to keep that rate increase down. We had made a recommendation to reduce down to 12 brush pickups, but then we didn't go and back that up or say why. I think if you're providing data, it should be pretty self-explanatory, but just something for commissioners to think about, because sometimes these things can get even though it may not, we may have consensus here, there may be some more discussion at the council level, and we could kind of support some of that conversation if needed.
Well, great. Yeah, that would be great. But hopefully, the staff report and recommendation will do its job and be clear enough to support the recommendation, and won't get too many questions.
Ben, will this be which council meeting will this be discussed?
October 8th, you said?
So
Rates?
rates will be October 8th. The services will be at September 10th.
10th.
Oh, the 9th, yeah, the
Yeah,
9th is the
10th,
RCC and then
yep.
the 10th is council.
Got it, yep. Okay. All right,
Thank you.
very good. Jim, how are we doing on time? Very good, thank you.
And we're well ahead,
Very good.
10 minutes ahead.
Wow.
All right,
Five.
slow down, everybody.
Come on.
5C, review Fitchburg Star article schedule. Andrew and commission. So I think this is out of the packets, what Ben has pulled up there, but I think there may be some other things that we don't have in here that we have talked about at previous meetings. So we kind of already talked about this a little bit before about having Bill switch from October to September. And I think your plan was to follow up with Ron and just make
Yes.
sure that that's okay.
And so I think, regardless of who does September or October, I think it'd be a good idea for September to focus on Week Without Driving, and then October for winter biking. And maybe between the two of us, Ron can work that out.
Okay. Seems reasonable to me. Do we want to come up with other article ideas for November and December, or assign those at this time, just so people can be planning ahead? Looks like I haven't written an article yet this year. My gosh. All right. I feel like I've committed to something before.
Do we want to do another salt reduction article in
Well, I think
December?
there's a couple of opportunities when we get to November, right? So you've got both salt and energy efficiency is always a good one to do around November. So those could be opportunities. I feel like I have some other ideas, that were in my head as well, but I could save those for next spring because, it's really about the timing of some of these articles and when they come out. So I could commit to the November article.
I thought we had more scheduled. Didn't we, Andy?
I had committed to something 2 meetings ago, but I forget what it was, and it's not written in the notes, so I don't remember.
Jim, I think you were supposed to do something for August.
Oh.
About talking trash. But they,
there's a lot of, letters to the editor.
they filled the spot, so.
They fill the spots. I don't think we can do that at some point as well, so.
Yeah, do you want to commit to talking trash in November or December?
Yeah, November's good, talking trash, and that's the perfect title.
And then are you a taker for December, or should I?
Yeah, depending on what topic I come up with. So, if the thing is November might be a more ideal time to talk about salt.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then Jim and I will switch.
And the other option is Chris, you and I can co-write also. I don't want to steal all your glory on trash. You're very well versed.
Yeah, so I'll work that. We'll work out November and December, the two of us.
Right.
So,
okay.
Diane, if you could just capture that, we'll do that. I might look back.
Did you say, Chris, did you say that you're going to write an article on salt? Or
if we think, I think that would probably be I'm open to it, but I think that would be a higher priority is, we want to try to get something. I don't know that we got anything out last year, so I could write something on salt in November.
we did get something on salt last year because the Salt Wise woman whose name escapes me right now, she had, remember Ben, she had some big deal going on in January that we were trying to
Right.
promote.
Yep, Alice Madison, yep.
Yeah, so we did get something last year, but I think it's good to remind people again. So,
Yeah, I could.
if you're gonna write an article on salt, I can send you the articles that have been written on salt, if you wanna do that.
Sure, that would be great.
Or if you don't wanna do that, that, your choice.
No, I think that's fine. I think I'm remembering now what my other article idea was, and I think it stems from going to the Promega Wellness Conference, and there were a couple of Fitchburg buildings that won awards for their sustainability designs in ASHRAE or something like that. So, I had wanted to kind of highlight that at some point, but that could be just sending almost news if if they wanted to cover that separately, that could be something that more so I just kind of notify Fitchburg Star about, not make it necessarily a RCC article. So maybe I'll take more of that approach, and then Jim and I will work out November and December. All right, anybody have anything else on that?
I could go ahead and commit to January right now.
Commit to January right now? My gosh, we're 5 months out.
Wow.
So, all right, well, we'll try to get the chart filled in so we don't have to recollect.
Who said that? Who said January?
Andrew.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. So, I think we've got a good number in the hopper now. Thanks everyone for, I think this is one of the first times we've had very active involvement in our article writing across the commission. So appreciate everybody, stepping up and be willing to write articles. All right. Anything else on that before we go on to the council update? All right, moving on to agenda item number 6, council update. Bill?
Yeah, so we didn't have a council meeting at the first half of July. That's standard practice. So this is mainly, one meeting ago. Couple items of interest to the group. Sue Easterday was awarded an Invasive Species Action Award. She's out in the parks, pulling out invasives and getting volunteers and stuff. There's a change order for the design of the police services facility. Because last time they built one that was, the design was rejected, so now we're gonna have to pay them a little more to get a new design. And part of that change order will include another presentation to the RCC. And so last time around, the building was 74,000 square feet. This time it's 52,000. It's roughly 30% smaller. Last time around, the sustainability items were going to total to $2.5 million. And the figure that they have shown in the change order, I don't know how firm that is $3.5 million. So we're spending 40% more on a building that's 30% smaller. I have yet to see what the differences are between what we talked about last time and what we're going to talk about this time. I mentioned it to the mayor and she said, yeah, they're talking about doing different things. So be looking forward to that presentation when it arrives. The city of Fitchburg is going to hop onto a collaborative grant, Safe Streets for All grant. So there's several municipalities plus the MPO plus I think Dane County itself. And this is for planning and demonstration grants, not actual implementation of the projects, but kind of looking for safety, which will, generally speaking, be more favorable to transit and active transportation over cars, which is gonna be a good thing for everybody in terms of pollution, greenhouse gases, personal safety, et cetera. Both the Greenfield Neighborhood Plan and the South Stoner Prairie Plan are moving forward. I guess South Stoner Prairie is moving forward before anything is gonna happen with Greenfield, but both of those are, several, I think Greenfield is 900 plus acres, South Stoner Prairie is maybe between 200 and almost 300. So that's gonna involve more neighborhoods, more roads, water, sewer, et cetera. So all of that just kind of falls under the umbrella of anything resource conservation. And then just kind of a fun one, on the 31st of July, we had the groundbreaking for the North Fish Hatchery Road Hub Park. So that's finally moving along. That's all I've got for you.
Good. Anybody have any questions or comments on any of those items? All right, hearing none. Move on to the staff and commissioner updates. So, solid waste, Ben?
I do actually have a couple things. I didn't get it on there, but I did want to mention that the plastic-free July that Kim put together in July, last month, went really well. We were able to talk with a bunch of folks that were coming to Hy-Vee. I think we gave away like 80 plus.
83.
83, was that the number? Yeah.
83 what?
Reusable bags.
Out of 100.
We were able to. A lot of people stopped and talked, and it was really good. The other solid waste update, just got an update from.
Ben, did you say you gave away 83 reusable bags?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what was the reward for the people who brought reusable bags?
High five.
We could not get any rewards from Hy-Vee.
Really?
Yes, so we had to kind of restructured the whole event to focus on plastic-free July and, giving out the message about the importance of using your reusable bag. So that's what we ended up doing. But we ended up talking to a lot of people, and a lot of people walking out with their bags, and they loved them. And we even had Hy-Vee workers who came out and talked to us and said they were excited that we were doing this and asked for a bag.
Yeah.
Well, great pivot.
Yeah.
That's a good, to give Kim credit, she really tried really hard to figure out that reward for people bringing reusable bags, but it just didn't work out, and the event was there on us, and we had to just move forward.
Good job.
I think that's a good pivot, though. I think that's really positive to hear that, and I know from kind of the initial time setting this up, there's a certain cost every week that Hy-Vee's paying for all those plastic bags that are going out.
Trust me, all of the emails that I sent to him, and I included the costs, I included all of the benefits and things that Hy-Vee had done in the past when we worked with them, and incentives, and it was a challenge.
Well, I'm glad that the workers really appreciated it.
The good news is they seem to change managers frequently, so maybe next time they'll be more willing to work with us.
Yes, exactly.
All right. The other solid waste, just an update on Sean Paff's presentation. Fitchburg Lions Club, they are participating in the Next Tracks Challenge. That's the plastic film recycling. You may have noticed walking into City Hall that there's a container out there. The other container is in just in the community center vestibule. Didn't get the okay from the library or the senior center. That's all right. Sean also has one at the Pick and Save, and I believe he's just looking to finalize a few details with Pick and Save as far as, you know, like the transport and when to bring the bags there and stuff. So just some logistics. But basically, yeah, we're live, and at some point here in the next couple of weeks, I think there'll be some FACTv interviews, some more social media posts, and maybe someone will throw an air tag in there, I don't know. Low jack the bags.
I dropped off a bunch here and I was gonna take a selfie, but I realized it was July. It's still plastic-free July and I didn't feel like that was right.
And
Dan, where did you say the second container was at City Hall?
Like 100 feet away from
the community
from the
center.
other one in the community center.
Oh, okay. It's not at the entrance to City Hall?
It's at the entrance to City Hall and the entrance to the community center.
Should we be talking to like Avante Properties or somebody with a large apartment or multifamily, condos or apartments, and say, hey, you got a common area here?
Yeah, I'll have to bring that up with the Lions Club and see if they'd be interested in that. Because right now, I mean, I will say they're pretty close to each other.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, we were trying to brainstorm with Sean on some additional
That's a great idea, like down by where they have all those apartments on Lacey, just past the roundabout, like the Talon and.
Or up by the fairways and the pines
Sure.
on North Fish Hatchery Road, or the Whispering Pines condos.
Yeah. Those would all be good spots. Yeah, I'll have to see what Sean would think about that and reaching out to those guys and seeing if they'd be amenable.
Yeah,
I
so
think we
that's
could get more of those containers too.
Yeah.
Sure you could.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for working on that, Ben.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
sure,
working on it. I did, in the past month since the last meeting, I did also look into kind of Promega's plastic film recycling. So that is also a Nextrex recycling initiative. So I think they kind of got, some of the idea from the grocery store, who I believe is also using Nextrex. So like the Pick and Save is. So like it's kind of a developing trend, and like the amount of plastic film that they're recycling at Promega is significant, like 26,000 or 34,000 pounds per year. It's kind of what they're projecting.
That'd be a lot of benches if they got one for every 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
It sure would be. We would not have short of benches in Fitchburg if that was the case. But they've done a lot with like educating internally to like make sure people understand what plastic films can be recycled versus what can't. And so there's pretty extensive knowledge within the Promega base, and a lot of those people live in our community as well. So as we move forward, let's kind of think about not only the effort we're doing, but also kind of what businesses are doing in Fitchburg, and that this is kind of a full-fledged kind of government, residential and commercial effort that we're really trying to attack the amount of plastic film that's going to our landfills. So I did go ahead and nominate the team at Promega that was responsible for starting this program for a Sustained Aim Live Forward Award. And so they will be recognized at the very least as nominees, and who knows, they may be selected as winners for that award this year. So
Very nice.
just wanted to kind of throw that in there. I didn't know at the last meeting that was related to Nextrex, now I do.
Well, great. And that's that kind of wraps up the recycling or solid waste updates.
All
Hey,
right.
but before you move on, do we have an update on the food waste collection at the farmer's market?
Yeah, so I've been reaching out to somebody that's in charge of the farmer's market. His name's Steve. I've sent him a couple of emails since our last meeting, and I haven't gotten a response. So I'm at the point of calling. But if we remember, the projection was to be starting about now with that, and so want to kind of follow up with Sustained Gain and just say, hey, here's where we're at. We're trying some more things to try to get a response, see if this is all right, but we haven't unfortunately gotten there yet, and just kind of see where, what we can even potentially do this year at this point. I know Ron was also following up, and we had some correspondence in the past month, and he hadn't connected with the right folks at Promega on it either, or hadn't gotten a response yet. So I think we'll go to the next course of action to try to get those responses so that we can be making some decision and getting back to Sustained Gain. But at this point, I think we should be letting Sustained Gain know that where we're at least, and what we're trying to do at this stage.
Great.
Anything else on solid waste?
Nope, thanks. Well, maybe. I asked if we could have somebody from the police department attend one of our meetings so we could discuss the med-drop program and what snags they ran into. Can we get that on the agenda sometime soon, please? I was hoping we could do it and get.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Ryan with the PD and see what would work with the schedule for one of the meetings here this year.
Okay, thanks.
All right, item 7B, stormwater. Ben, you're up again.
Yeah, so we've had, some of these heavier rains this year have, I guess, kind of shown us where there are some, constrictions in the stormwater system, kind of notably in some of the rural areas. So there's been some road overtopping events following some of these storms. So we've kind of been able to identify some culverts that, maybe weren't sized for the storm events that we would have sized them for today. So particularly on Fitchburg Road and a couple on Cyene Road up near Irish that we're working on kind of just right sizing, and some of those are in navigable waterways, so there'd be more of a permit process, not just having the streets crew go out and replace it, but actually going through more of a formal permit process.
So the Cyene Road that was just reconstructed?
No,
this is a different section?
Different section. Okay. Luckily, yeah. That would not be fun having to rip up the new road because they didn't put the right size culvert in. So no, it's south of all that new stuff. Yep.
Just a little bit of background so people understand, like when a stormwater design is done, when a development's being done, we're using certain rainfall, events that are happening, and so for instance, you might be using like a 10-year storm event as the driver for the size of, how big, piping should be, so I want to be able to handle that 10-year storm event. But with climate change and the intensity of rain events changing, those numbers are changing a little bit, and so from time to time we're going to find this happening in our community, and it's just kind of like you're doing, just trying to slowly address where those where we're getting complaints or people are observing things going on with our stormwater infrastructure, and just trying to be, well, in this case we might kind of being a little bit reactive to those situations, but I'm hopeful that there are changes. I don't do stormwater calculations every day, but I hope that people, as they're doing, or engineers as they're doing their designs, are kind of thinking about how those things are maybe affecting how those things will perform with kind of the current climate conditions.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and there hasn't really been any regulatory changes to address that, so we're still using the same standard rainfalls, precipitation depths. They were adjusted like several years ago, but we also always kind of talk in typically a 24-hour storm, which I think based on what I understand, the researchers and the people that are putting the work in, it seems like maybe the prediction would be more of these shorter, more intense events, which kind of more like what we've seen just at, some of the storms this summer would be an example. So yeah, I that is a good point. I don't know that we've kind of caught up to the realities of a changing climate here in southern Wisconsin, but certainly something that should be taken into account, even if it can't be through the typical regulatory means. But
does that also lead to more sedimentation in like the retention ponds?
I would say yes. Any kind of rain event you have is going to carry soil particles. So I think it's fair to say the more rain you get, the more erosion that you'll see, and that's played out many times when you look at the stream gauge monitoring that USGS does, or any kind of water quality monitoring. When there's less rain in a year, there's much less sedimentation, nitrates, phosphorus. So erosion is really very correlated to rainfall.
Yeah, I know that we had like a 4-inch rain event a couple Sundays back, and I think in Swan Creek we got 1 inch in Stoneman's, which is less than 2 miles down the road from my house, had measured 4. And so just in that 2-mile stretch, there was that much difference. And I so happened to be running some things out to the compost site at that very time that happened. I thought the rain was over, but it was also heavy down along Irish Lane. And, it was such an intense storm that, I could see the runoff from the farm fields in that situation. And, there was a lot, I haven't seen an event like that, that intense and saw so much runoff from it. I mean, Fish Hatchery Road was covered, was flash flooded there for a little bit. But that was like 4 inches that dropped really quickly.
Yeah.
And, I kind of saw all the runoff, happening, and saw so much sediment in the water, during that intense rain. So I got to experience it firsthand and saw sedimentation.
It's pretty drastic.
It is.
Yep.
Do we have any, so you explained to us the situation with Goose Lake, where it's not necessarily any particular rain event, it's how much water is already sitting
that's
there.
a big factor.
Are there situations like that, like elsewhere in the city, where the culvert is sized just fine, it's just that depending on the pattern of the rainfall, we may still have problems? Well, like you said, Fish Hatchery Road having a flash flood in the low spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are. It's a much lesser degree than you look at City Madison, where the lakes get super high and then kind of the isthmus is. So we don't have those kind of super regional areas of flooding, but certainly as ponds fill up, the water, there's not as much head difference between the water coming in and so everything, the efficiencies change, when you've got that water backing up downstream. But there's not, like I said, there's not any kind of regional flooding concerns caused by that here that I'm aware of, at least. Some other things, so we'll have our, one of these next meetings will be kind of the stormwater focus meeting. We'll have Todd with USGS here to kind of talk through the Swan Creek monitoring results for the past water year. We'll also talk through the kind of status and report for this total maximum daily load water quality model that we're wrapping up. In fact, we just completed the modeling last week for that, so kind of working on putting the final report together. Let's see, wrapping up some stuff with that Greenway Cross, Ackerman Road intersection project. It was just a little storm sewer extension project. Wrapping up the Crescent Road stormwater improvements project. This is another kind of project aimed at alleviating street flooding that's been recurring more often than is acceptable. So that's still planned for 2025. And yeah, I think those are the kind of the highlights there.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Phil, any sustainability updates beyond the sustainability plan?
Yeah, I had a couple in here. Still working on the solar arrays in the public library and public works maintenance building. We had a little unfortunate communications issue, so a couple installers were put in the wrong place. Arch is ordering a new one to remedy that situation, but the last I heard from them was about a week ago, and they've got we had 4 solar inverters that needed to be replaced still. They have 3 of those replaced, and we're waiting on that final new inverter for the library. We don't yet have all of the 3 new inverters. We don't have connected to my online tracker yet, so I haven't been able to verify on my end that they're operational and sending data, but my understanding is that they are producing electricity again, so just need to get Arch Electric and IT connected for just to make sure we can get that communication worked out. We're making a little more progress on upgrading our SolSmart designation level. I know that's been a question from the mayor and from some RCC members. Building inspection has okayed us, I think I put this all in the packet, updating our turnaround time that we stayed online to 3 days for basic residential arrays. So just got one more thing to talk with the planning department about, that if we are able to get that language updated in ordinances, we could get up to SolSmart Gold. I'm also planning to communicate with a representative from SolSmart in the next week or so to I've got a meeting scheduled for Wednesday just to make sure that what we're doing tracks with what they think we need to do. So right now we're not on pace to get to platinum yet, which I know Sun Prairie and McFarland both did to great fanfare this spring, but I think we'll be able to get to gold by sometime next year. And then we've got the fall recycling and shred event set for Saturday, September 14. So probably in hindsight should have had that on the agenda for this evening's meeting, but we will send out an email in the next week or so asking for folks who'd be interested to volunteer for that again. I think most everybody here has participated in at least one of those in the past. If not, happy to answer any questions. But yeah, shouldn't be any significant changes from the spring event this year.
Phil, regarding the SolSmart, remind me again,
Yes.
That's all about removing barriers, but not like providing like actual incentives or mandates to do anything, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's about simplifying the process, communicating it well to your community. Yeah. So for instance, the vast majority of our points getting SolSmart in the first place back in 2019 had to do with simplifying our inspection process and making it a little bit clearer to residents. So we didn't necessarily, we didn't put any mandates or incentives in place, but we made sure if you wanted to install solar that we should make it as easy as possible. We have a solar resources landing page on our website specifically because of that SolSmart process, just to provide as much information as possible.
Okay, so the rating, like the actual amount of solar being installed in your city has no bearing on your rating. It's all about whether you're
Correct.
Whether you've made it an easy choice to put it up. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
On the fall recycling event, that is the same, I think we've mentioned this before, it is the same day as the
Yep.
Wisconsin-Alabama football game. And so,
It is.
some people, might be frustrated by that, but I don't think we found any other alternative dates that could work. So.
There wasn't another viable date for the fall, correct?
Right. Yeah. So, my thought was, what's our typical time for the event? Is it 8 to
11?
8 to 11.
8 to 11.
The game starts at 11. So is there any flexibility to go more of a 7 to 9 event or not really?
I don't think so. So we've already got, Ben and I are already showing up at 7 a.m. to start prepping, and we've got folks from Pelletarian Resource Solutions showing up as much as 15 or 20 minutes early. I think asking those vendors to show up before 7 a.m. and having me and Ben show up at 6 a.m. is just probably not realistic for that event.
All right.
I know we do get people tend to just start lining up at 7:45 anyway, and if the vendors are ready for them, we let them start going through. So we'll do that again, but we can't promise anything. We do state 8 a.m. as the start time.
I think that might be our best tactic.
Bill, I just want to mention that the eCycle folks would not let people start early at the spring event.
That makes sense.
Why does that make sense?
Because we state that it's 8 to 11. We contract with them for a specific amount of time. That it's a 3-hour event that they'll set up and take down and provide services for. So
well, they were all ready and just visiting with each other. It would be nice if they could start early, if they're ready.
Yeah, I can't speak for them. I know that we've contracted a 3-hour event, and if they start 15 minutes early, then they're essentially providing labor that has not been included in the contract.
I see what you're saying.
I can ask them about letting people in early if they're already lined up, but I know that 8 a.m. is what we have signed for with them.
Pelletary lets people start early.
That's their prerogative.
Just pointing it out.
Yep. We do appreciate that, but we also let people know that if you show up early, there's no guarantees of anything.
Okay.
We might have quite a line on that day.
Possibly. We might have to we'll use the football lingo here. If you want to attend the game and have some stuff to drop off, you might have to do a little handoff with one of your friends.
There you go. And we might need a little amusement to work our way through that event. So, all right. So anything else, Phil?
That's all.
All right. Thank you, Phil. 7D, activities being conducted or monitored by commissioners. I think I mentioned activities in Peru last time. Professor Tinjin, I still need to catch up with you on that. Anybody have anything else that they want to share? James, anything exciting happening?
Sorry, Chris, I missed that. I just stepped away.
Oh, no problem. I had talked about Peru last time, but I think we'll have a separate discussion about that at some point, probably with John Walsh. So I think that's trying to get organized, us getting together to talk about that event. But anything that any commissioners have that they want to share, any activities being conducted or monitored by commissioners? All right, seeing none.
Don't forget to vote tomorrow.
All right, good announcement.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m., is that right?
I don't know the exact time.
Yes.
Vote for it, Dan.
Your favorite candidate.
Yeah.
Good answer.
All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:28 p.m. Great job, Jim. Way to keep us on task.
Record time.
You should do this every month, Jim.
Yes.
It's,
Yeah.
I didn't even have to work hard, but I'll take the credit.
Fair enough.
Thanks for sharing, Chris.
Yes.
All right.